I'll see you guys in the dark.
Before I begin, I have no prejudice or issues with anyone of Middle Eastern descent. Anything I say is honestly just to describe the people around me and the situation as it happened. My mother and stepfather live in Europe, and I visited them for Christmas break. I was undergrad in large New York City school, so I was flying Frankfurt to JFK. Because I'm highly intelligent, I read my flight time as 11:50, when it was actually 11:05. Cue me dashing through the airport and barely making it to the last bus to the tarmac, which was reserved for people who had to go through a secondary hand search for belonging security checks. As I had just barreled my way through a large international airport, I was one of the lucky few. The rest, all Middle Eastern, from families with kids, an elderly woman, and mostly single men. Great job not obviously racial profiling, huh? Anywho, I had just barely made it. The bus had closed its doors and was ready to leave until I came flying out with an out-of-breath German airport agent trailing behind me, covered in sweat, embarrassed, but thankful I made it as the semester started the next day. I observed my fellow security risks. Sarcasm, but that's actually what we technically were, and noticed a middle-aged man in what I would say is traditional Middle Eastern clothing. He was in a white sort of robe that went down to his ankles and the sleeves to his wrists. He had headgear on. It was a cap with an embroidered design that circled fully around his head and barely extended past the top of his skull. I don't know the name. I apologize for this. I only noticed him, and subsequently his clothing, because he was on the phone and he was sobbing. Not the quiet sniffle cry I did when I realized I had messed up the time, but full-on hiccuping crying while he talked on the phone. I felt bad. He was speaking in Arabic, so I didn't know what was going on, but I could imagine it maybe was along the lines of being upset he might miss his flight, as our bus was not guaranteed to get to the plane in time. We get on the plane, make our way to our seats, and I'm delighted to find that I'm in the aisle, no one in the middle, and a decently good-looking girl in the window seat. Yeah, buddy. The crying man was behind me as he shuffled down the aisles. I noticed he had no carry-on luggage, but didn't really care. Once I sat down, he kept going, looking around a bit confused, then sat down in the middle of 5 unoccupied middle rows. It was a 3x3x3 layout. Having myself been shuttled back and forth across the Atlantic many times, I know that the flight attendant would set up their sleep area for rest in between shifts. I was about to tell him that, but an FA swooped in and directed him to the seat on his ticket, which was in the middle of the row directly behind me. He was still crying, but I cry a lot too, so I think very little of it. Thankful that I was safely on the plane and headed back to the good old US of A. I settled in and tuned out the welcome video that started playing. Well, that didn't last long. The video paused as the FA made the customary, "Hello, I am FA Brunhild, your pilot in Volks with the first officer wagon. This flight is from Frankfurt to New York City. If this is not your destination, what the fuck are you doing on here? Get the fuck out." Taxiing begins, and I'm on my way back to studying playing soccer and learning about it. There's a commotion behind me, and the man from before stands up, starts crying harder, sobs and hiccups aplenty. And once the FA speech is done, he yells, "This is a lie! This plane is not going to New York." Well, that's news to me. Are we going to Hawaii, perhaps? Dude is scream-sobbing in a mixture of English and Arabic. I'm just waiting for us to get up in the air and the drink service so I can get my, drink on. He graciously, really, for being in such an upset state, slid past the woman in the aisle and started screaming and gesticulating at the various FA station sound. He utters what every owner of a lily white butt has been conditioned to fear. Allah, specifically. New York is a lie. They are lying to us. Allah will deliver us to paradise. There are more pronouncements, but as they were in a mix of English and Arabic, I don't quite remember them. Essentially, They were the last fucking thing you'd want to hear on a large aluminum thing, whether you're 30K feet in the air or just sitting on the tarmac. Now, New York City sucks big time, at least for an introvert like myself who didn't want to go to school there in the first place. And even when I was getting concerned, judging by the faces of my fellow lily-white butt owners, they were terrified. His shouting was then solely in Arabic. My exhausted and stressed brain could only think, if I just fucking sprinted to get onto this plane and some shit happens and I die, I'm going to be outraged. Also, I would be dead, but I would still be outraged. Our plane screeches to a halt. Well, it slows rumbles into a plane park. And Die Polizzi. God, I freaking love German. Really gets the phlegm out of my throat. Surround our plane and unceremoniously charge down the aisles, body armor and guns all over. Excuse me, I'm with the TSA. And you can't do that. And take him off the plane and presumably into custody. Due to our proximity to him, the passengers in the row in front and behind me are questioned. Me, being the member of bus public enemy number TBT, got grilled even harder than that. I told them that I'm stupid. I got my times mixed up, admitted to my sin, got baptized, and was released. We all told them that as far as we knew, he had no carry-on luggage, and the agents in the airport said he hadn't checked any baggage. But still, they investigated all checked luggage. Fingers crossed they didn't see my sex toys. The guy continued screaming various iterations of, "This plane isn't going to New York," as he was hauled off in cuffs, which doesn't quite make for a relaxing 10-hour trip. The flight was uneventful afterwards, but there was obvious tension in the air. Haha, see what I did there? 'Cause like the plane was in the air? I have always hated flying, and this certainty didn't help at all. So man in the row behind me, I really don't want you on my flight ever again. This happened a few years ago, but thinking about it makes me sick to my stomach. I'm a young woman, and was returning to my hometown after a work-related trip. I'm sitting in the aisle seat, and notice a young man sitting across the aisle 1 row in front of me. At first, things were just fine. He seemed a bit nervous, but I chalked it up to a fear of flying. Then his behavior changed. Rather than looking scared, he began to look suspicious, his eyes darting around from person to person, as if trying to see if someone is watching him, wiping sweaty hands on his jeans. At this point, I knew something was about to go down, so I locked eye contact. I wanted him to know that he had been seen. As we were preparing to take off, he jumps up, trying to access an overhead bin. Multiple requests were made for everyone to remain seated, so the flight attendant urges him to sit back down. We take off, and his erratic behavior continues. I felt such a heavy feeling of dread, I was tempted to press the attendant button to report him. Twice more, he tried to access the overhead bin in a rush while we were still climbing to the top altitude. The attendant had to become aggressive with him, in a way that I've never seen someone be yelled at on a plane. Finally, we start cruising, and he doesn't attempt to stand up, but he does start chatting with fellow passengers. He opens his phone and pulls up an image of a massive gun collection, showing it off to people in the surrounding area, and my heart just sank. Again, I glared at him. Who the hell shows that to a group of strangers on a plane? At this point, he caught the attention of the man sitting directly across the aisle from me. During the rest of the flight, him and I just exchanged looks as the crazy dude geared up. The rest of the flight, it just became apparent that the dude was off his rocker. He spoke about how he had a meeting with Donald Trump coming up on the calendar. Talked about how he was making millions with his investments in a new Bitcoin company. Seemed like typical puffery until he started talking about his ex-wife. He spoke about her with such violent hatred that again my insides felt knotted. This dude despised women, and he didn't do a good job of hiding it at all. Once we finally landed, I looked at his ticket and was able to catch his name. The man darted off the plane and through the airport. Just for shits, I googled the guy's name. Wanted to figure out if he was all bullshit, though I already suspected it, of course. Turns out he was a notorious alt-right troll. Actually pretty infamous. Known for spreading fake news, and blocked from Twitter for soliciting violence against a black activist. The dude has been sued multiple times for misinformation and claims Obama is secretly gay. I have no idea what he actually had in that overhead container. Maybe it was a picture of his fake ex-wife. Maybe something more sinister than that. But that gut instinct of women's intuition told me it was the latter. So alt-right troll, I really hope that we don't see each other again. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.